Welcome to the Ask Brad Show. Be prepared to hear ideas, concepts, and strategies that may challenge the way you were taught to think about saving and investing for retirement. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to it. And now, the host of the Ask Brad Show, here's Brad Williams.
Good morning, Huntsville, North Alabama. Welcome to another edition of the Ask Brad Show, and we appreciate your listening to us every week. Oftentimes, it's that little extra, that little extra set of eyes that really makes an impact in the outcome of something. You can only focus by yourself a certain amount, and then having that hand, I often tell people that, I'm there to hold their hand and help them through things. Well, you get to hold my hand on the radio. So today, want to talk about the retirement planning checklist. And by no means does this cover everything, but we're going to try to be as all-encompassing as I can be to look at, okay, let's say you are right on the verge of retiring and you're going through that mental gymnastics of, wow, what's next? What am I forgetting? What do I need to be doing? What do I need to be looking at? And what questions do I need to be asking? So we're going to start with the very basics. And that is, prior to retirement, you need to be setting up a budget. And you need to know what you're going to be spending. I know a lot of people saying, oh my God, there's that budget word again. You're going to make me make a budget. Well, you're right, I am. So if you really want to have a successful retirement and you really want to know where things are, you got to have a budget. It's just like when you're taking a trip. Used to be you got your map out and charted it out. Now you get your GPS out and let that dictate where you go. But let's just look at it as a retirement roadmap. You need to know where you are, which means you need to know what you have to deal with to take you where you want to go. And so when you look at that, you can look at the last 12 months as a reasonable expectation of things like your mortgage. You need to calculate when that'll be paid off and what your payments are. We're going to cover a lot of the different items in your retirement planning, but you've got to be looking at where that money's going to be going. And so without a budget, you can't do that. So you've got to take into account a couple things. You have your traditional living expenses. You're going to have health care expenses, and we're going to cover that. You're going to have entertainment expenses. You may have expenses with children and grandchildren and things like that. So if you look at your retirement kind of in phases, that might help you budget and take into account things a little easier. And you got phase 1, which is early retirement, phase 2, which is middle retirement, and phase 3, which is later retirement. Now I call those, phase 1 is you might say those are your go-go years. You've just retired for the next 5 to 10 years. You may be taking trips and enjoying time with your spouse, enjoying time with your grandkids. I know I have a lot of clients that, take their kids and grandkids on cruises and take them on trips to spend time with them. You've been working so hard your whole life, oftentimes, that you may have neglected some of those times. Well, now's your time to enjoy it. So you look at that as your go-go years. The next is that slow-go years, those slow-go years. And that's when maybe you're 72, 75, maybe a little older if you're lucky. And you just don't feel like traveling. You may not have the energy anymore. You may be taking trips, maybe just locally or regionally. I know a lot of my clients in those early years, that's when they take their European vacations and Alaska cruises and all that. And then when they get to those slow go, maybe that's when they go to Florida or something with their family. And may not travel that much at all except to visit them. So that's your, you got your go-go, you got your slow-go, and then eventually you're going to have the no-go years where you just don't really feel like traveling. And that's when some other expenses start creeping in, which are healthcare expenses. And I'm going to address those in a few minutes. So it's important to take into account each phase of retirement, the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. So keep that in mind. I'd like to make an offer. Normally I do this for people that when they first come to see me. If you would like a complimentary checklist for retirement, just call on our line here, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. We'll tell you how you can get this very valuable and free report, no cost, no obligation to you for our listeners. This will give you one of those foundational items that you need to begin having a sound retirement plan.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, our goal is to develop enduring, long-term personal relationships with our clients, knowing that you have placed your trust in our expertise and dedication. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. A message from Brad Williams Financial Services, LLC, right here in Huntsville.
Is your financial advisor performance-driven or purpose-driven? What I mean is, when you meet with them, is it all about returns and numbers, or is it about you, your family, and your quality of life? Do they know your goals, your aspirations, and the desires you have that you hope your money can achieve? Did they even ask? Is your financial advisor a partner in your retirement, or just someone who sends you reports? If you're looking for an advisor to be more of a partner for you and your spouse in retirement, call Brad Williams Financial Services at 844-343-6048. Call today and schedule a free 1-hour, no obligation consultation to discuss your goals and aspirations and see if we're a good fit. That's 844-343-6048.
Thanks for listening to our show today. In retirement, you only get one chance to get it right, and we know that proper information leads to informed decisions. And that's why we hold free informational workshops in our area every month. Topics like Social Security, RMDs, the latest retirement tax strategies, IRAs, estate planning, and so much more. For dates and times of the next free workshop in your area, just pick up the phone. Give us a call today. Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, now we're back from break. We first talked, or I should say we talked about our first step is setting a budget, looking at expenses. And one important thing, too, is have an emergency fund. I use, in a lot of clients' planning, is the buckets of money approach, where you've got your money segregated in different buckets. That's a theme for another show. But what that is you're keeping a certain amount liquid and easily accessible for the short term, 0 to 5 years. And then you've got your 5 to 10 year bucket, which is your, investments that have a little less liquidity, but a higher rate of return. And then your third bucket, which is your 10-year plus, that's where your more aggressive investments are, so that you're allowing them to do what they do best, which is grow, and you're not having to worry about markets, ups and downs in that point. So that emergency fund is typically in that first bucket. That's that fairly liquid bucket that you know you're going to need, say, within the next 5 years. It's also good to have 3 to 6 months of total living expenses in case some emergency comes up. But these are the things you need to start planning for contingencies as you're getting ready for retirement. So, buckets is one way, cash flow analysis is another. I've just found that most people identify with the buckets approach because it's easily understandable. In fact, got a lot of longstanding clients that when they come in, they want to talk about, well, we got this in bucket 2 and suggestions on that. What do you think? So they've already self-identified with the buckets approach. So it's just easily understood. But it's only one way. There are many ways. I think what's important for people is the fact that there is not only one way. There are several ways. There are many ways to plan for your retirement. And the key is having a plan. I mean, that is it. It's just having the plan and having it calculated out and monitoring it on a regular basis. I think the next big thing after developing a budget, having an emergency fund, would be health insurance options. This is a big question because that's going to be one of your biggest expenses in retirement, especially as you get older, because your health insurance costs are going to go up. You're going to have more medicines, most likely. If you don't, great, you're blessed. What I've found is that's that area that it's hard to plan for, but you need to be making contingencies, because then you got, as you're moving into retirement, you got to look at, okay, do we have employer coverage that I can carry with me after my retirement date? Does it end at my retirement date? Does my employer, as for example, some of the federal employees do, have a supplement option that they can go, or military people with TRICARE for life, where they can have that supplement to Medicare? Because once you hit Medicare, you got some big decisions. Once you hit 65, that's some big decisions to make. You got Part A, which is your hospitalization, Part B, which is your medical care, doctor care, and all that. And then you got to be looking at a supplement in one way or another to get you through those deductibles and co-insurance to where you don't end up going broke, supplementing what your insurance would do. So there are many choices to make in the supplement realm. Don't want to make that the theme of this show. I think I will another show. But the Medicare option is a real important one that you need to have addressed by the time you get to Medicare. You need to have already been looking at that and figuring out what your choices are. So, as we recap, figuring out a budget, figuring out an emergency fund, and then determining health care expenses in retirement. Now, probably, I guess the most important thing, because you got to pay for all this stuff, would be, where is your income going to come from? And that's key. So you got your budget now, and you've determined what your expenses are. Now you need to blend that and find out, are you going to have a surplus every month with guaranteed income sources? Or are you going to need to supplement that with withdrawals from your retirement plans? Now, there are several key things to look at when we're looking at guaranteed income. And when I use the word guaranteed income, what I mean is, I'm not talking about something you buy that gives you guaranteed income. That can be used to supplement it. What I'm talking about is those sources. For example, Social Security. That's a guaranteed income source. That's going to be around as long as the federal government is anyway. Second would be pensions, whether they're government pensions, military pensions, corporate pensions. Although we are, most corporations have moved away from that. There are still people that are going to get a pension, even though they may not be accruing any more benefits past a certain date. But having that determination of where my guaranteed income sources are coming from. This first part of the show, we're covered the checklist for retirement, and I'm going to have this checklist available to you, along with several other resources. If you would like a copy of that, you can call me at 844-343-6048 and ask for the retirement planning checklist. That's 844-343-6048. This is Brad Williams, and I have been privileged to have been an instructor over the last 12 years or so at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. They have some great course offerings. I'm currently teaching a course that I've written and taught for many years, Changing Face of Retirement in the 21st Century. But that's not all of the courses there. You can learn languages. You can learn hobbies, travel. There are so many things that you can get out of these courses they offer at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. So check it out today and come keep your brain working.
For more information on the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, call 256-824-6183. That's 256-824-6183. Or email olli.info@uah.edu. The Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Come keep your brain working.
All right, now, as we have gone through our retirement planning checklist, of course, we've looked at setting up a budget, critical factor. I know nobody likes to do that, but you need a budget. You just need a budget. There are tools online you can use it. A financial planner can help you with that. There are many ways to go about that. One way would be just take a couple of sample months and write down during the course of that month everything you spend. And then calculate it and multiply that by 12, and that'll pretty much give you an annual budget with some variation. It's always good to build a fudge factor in there. So then looking at emergency fund and then looking at healthcare options. Before we went to break, I mentioned guaranteed income sources. Well, probably the number one that comes to mind when people think of guaranteed income sources is Social Security. And folks, we're probably going to spend a little time on Social Security today simply because it's pretty detailed. And there's a lot to consider when you're looking at Social Security. And so as we talk about Social Security, you have what's called your full retirement benefit. And I think most people understand you can claim early. You can claim at your full retirement age. In my case, it's just over 66. A lot of you may still be 65, and some it may be 67. That's your FRA, your full retirement age. A couple things happen at full retirement age. You don't get a penalty for working and collecting Social Security. See, that's another thing about timing your Social Security is you got to take into account that if you claim your Social Security benefit early, then you could possibly lose benefits if you're continuing to work, even on a part-time basis. There's some annual limits on that. So you got to be careful there. And then knowing that at age 70, it's maxed out. So there's no sense in waiting after 70 for Social Security because you're leaving money on the table. It's your money. So you do get an 8% deferred retirement credit based from your full retirement age each year until you hit 70. So if you can wait, there's not any private annuities you can buy from an insurance company that can give you that kind of rate of return as Social Security can by waiting until age 70. Now, some people can't, so they need to claim it when they need to claim it. But you just need to understand that. And understand that a lot of people may be assuming their retirement age is 65, but it's not. Their retirement age is a higher age. So you got to look at your taxation of benefits, because where you get your income has a lot of bearing on how your Social Security is taxable. So again, that's a topic for another show, which I've done and will do again to get into Social Security in a much more detailed way. You've also got to take into account that your claiming age, if you claim at full retirement age, you will have gotten the maximum benefit for your spouse. If you claim early, what happens is you've reduced your spouse's benefit. So when you're in that all-fired hurry to get out of the workforce and claim at 62, just remember that benefit may be taxed away if you earn too much, and that you've also set the maximum benefit for your spouse. So You got some choices you got to make if you're widowed or divorced. And so there's a lot in Social Security that you got to take into account. I use what's called Social Security timing, which is a thorough analysis that I run my clients through in the beginning of the planning process. That's usually one of those foundational pieces of information that we put together when we start working together is, okay, let's look at Social Security and your longevity, your health, your family traits, how long, what you think your life expectancy is, things like that need to be taken into account when you make that Social Security claim. And it's not as easy as you think. There are so many different ways to claim Social Security that end up with a different result. But it's just good to have a plan. And so looking at Social Security from that standpoint as that first foundational source of income is very, very important. I'd like to make an offer. Normally I do this for people that when they first come to see me. If you would like a complimentary Social Security timing report, just call my office on our line here, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. We'll tell you how you can get this very valuable and free report. No cost, no obligation to you for our listeners. This will give you one of those foundational items that you need to begin having a sound retirement plan.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we understand the struggles that families and business owners face today. We want to help you develop, implement, and monitor a strategy that's designed to address your personal objectives and individual situation. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investing in the stock market these days is like riding a roller coaster. Leaving a place of safety, get on the coaster, hear the clickety-clack as you experience anticipation climbing to the top of the hill, followed by sheer panic as you plummet back to the earth, hoping you stay on track. You might be brave enough to repeat the process several times, going up and down, but never achieving higher highs and accomplishing nothing but anticipation followed by fear. The stock market has been doing this same ride of volatility with no real growth. Proper education, though, can help you find a better way to grow your money during these times.
Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Have you missed any of today's show? Would you like to listen to past shows? We've got you covered 24/7. Visit AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com.
All right, now, as we have gone through our retirement planning checklist, the next step after Social Security would be choosing a pension option. I think most people who've gone through that understand that most companies will offer you a full pension just for you. You can take a partially reduced pension for you and then guarantee a certain amount for your spouse. And it can be everything from 70, 50, 25%. It just depends on what options are considered in that plan. Knowing what that means, knowing what Social Security means for you and your spouse, and knowing what the pension options are for you and your spouse is very important. And choosing a pension option is critical. And you do not want to do that without thorough evaluation of what your options are. It's just really, really critical. So again, as we look at the first step in that, it is knowing where your guaranteed sources of income are, which are Social Security and any pension benefits, and knowing how those are taxed and how they coordinate together is really, really important. The next thing is coming up with a timeline. Once you've looked at Social Security timing, once you've looked at your pension and when might be the optimal time to take that, is coming up with, okay, this is my budget. These are the particular years I need income. These are the income sources I'm getting them from. Do I have a surplus or shortfall? And that's where making withdrawals from a 401k, an IRA, a 403b, one of those retirement accounts or, brokerage account, if that's the case, would come into play. Then you've handled that income part of it and taken money out of your 401k, especially when you're below 59.5. That's something you need to understand too, is that there's some different rules for 401k withdrawals than there are for IRA withdrawals. And a lot of people don't understand that. So it's critical you understand that as you're building that bridge, especially if you're retiring at an earlier age. So you've also got to remember that even if you're not taking income from your IRA in your 401k, then you have to start taking a required minimum distribution at age 70.5. Why age 70.5? Nobody knows. I read a story that they asked one of the guys that was putting that together why they came up with 70.5, and he didn't even know. But you know what? It's one of those 59.5, 65, and 70.5 dates the government just arbitrarily selected, and that's what we're living with. That's what we got to deal with. So understand about your RMDs, your required minimum distributions, and how they come into play. It's also important to look at building a strategy for income. It's not just knowing where your income is coming from. It's knowing how it's taxed and building a strategy to reduce the taxes. Too often people just assume the taxes are going to come and we're just going to take it. Well, I work with a lot of clients on showing them, okay, if we take this out of here at this time and then out of here at this time, you're going to reduce your taxes down. And so there can be some strategic moves you can make to reduce taxes on your Social Security. You might look at systematic Roth conversions while you're still working so you can get tax-free income. It could be that you might take early withdrawals from your 401k or an IRA even before you're required at 70.5 to push you to that age 70 to where you can maximize your Social Security benefits. So there's all kinds of things that you need to take into account, you need to look at. So just remember that when it comes to income, that there needs to be a plan there. This first part of the show, we're covered the checklist for retirement. And I'm going to have this checklist available to you along with several other resources. If you would like a copy of that, you can call me at 844-343-6048 and ask for the retirement planning checklist. That's 844-343-6048.
Hello, this is Brad Williams with Brad Williams Financial Services. Deciding when and how you retire is one of the most important financial decisions you'll ever make. Should you take a lump sum? Do you have to pay tax on this money? How do you invest the distribution proceeds to make sure you don't outlive your income? With such an overwhelming number of investment options, one of the most important decisions you can make is to seek the advice of an advisor. For this important partnership, you need a highly trained and experienced professional who sees your total financial picture. Someone who can help you define your life goals, establish the right financial plan, provide strategies focused on your needs, and help you stay on track. So if you or someone you know just retired or is thinking of retiring, give me a call today. I'll provide a tailor-made analysis of your retirement options at absolutely no obligation to you. Can you really afford to retire without knowing all the facts?
Call 844-343-6048 or visit us online at AskBradShow.com. Thanks for listening to our show today. In retirement, you only get one chance to get it right, and we know that proper information leads to informed decisions. And that's why we hold free informational workshops in our area every month. Topics like Social Security, RMDs, the latest retirement tax strategies, IRAs, estate planning, and so much more. For dates and times of the next free workshop in your area, just pick up the phone. Give us a call today. Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, now, as we have gone through our retirement planning checklist, I've thrown a lot at you. I've talked about setting a budget. I've talked about determining expenses and what a timeline for those expenses are, determining where you're getting guaranteed income, how to claim Social Security, what needs to be taken into account for Social Security, what options you have with your pension. And they vary by each provider. And putting that all together, looking at a tax plan, looking at possible bucket, if you're going to use a bucket strategy, if that makes sense for you. There's a lot of things that need to come together to make that happen that you really need a plan for. Now, there are some advantages of using a professional. Typically, they've got the software. I know I do. They should have the software. They've had experience. They should have had experience anyway. But helping you through these and holding your hand, interview them. Remember, when you're sitting down with a financial advisor, remember that you're interviewing them, and it's okay to ask them the tough questions. Be careful when you feel like they're already leading you to a solution. If they already know what funds they're going to put you in, if they already know what strategies they're going to use, and the first time you get together, when they really haven't asked you that many questions, that should be a red flag. That planning process that I just described with all those tools typically takes me about 3 meetings to go through before we actually execute a plan. And 3's typically the minimum, because you need to take your time and be deliberate. That's the key. Be deliberate before you decide which investments we're in, whether you're going to use an annuity, whether you're going to use mutual funds, whether you're going to use managed money accounts. Whatever investments you're going to use are the furniture in the house. They're not the house. You build the house based on your lifestyle, and the investments furnish the house. They make the house a home by helping you achieve what you're trying to achieve. They're not the do-all, end-all. So it's knowing what your needs are and making plans for all those needs. That's the critical phase of your retirement plan. This first part of the show, we're covered the checklist for retirement. And I'm going to have this checklist available to you, along with several other resources. If you would like a copy of that, you can call me at 844-343-6048 and ask for the retirement planning checklist. That's 844-343-6048. And hopefully this first part of the show was helpful. Next week, you'll be able to pull this up on my website, my AskBradShow.com website, which you'll be able to pull up all my old programs and listen to those by topic at your leisure. So if you miss my show one of these Saturdays and maybe you heard something you wanted to catch up on, you can go to the AskBradShow.com and listen to those shows. You can also interact with me. Would love to have feedback from you on questions you might have for me that I'll be happy to read on the air, topics that you want me to discuss that maybe you don't seem to be able to find the information you need from. All these are very critical. So appreciate you listening to this first half. We'll be back soon with the second half of the show.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we believe in innovative thinking, and we're not afraid to challenge conventional methods in our approach to managing, investing, and preserving wealth. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
This is Brad Williams, and I have been privileged to have been an instructor over the last 12 years or so at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. They have some great course offerings. I'm currently teaching a course that I've written and taught for many years, Changing Face of Retirement in the 21st Century. But that's not all of the courses there. You can learn languages. You can learn hobbies, travel. There are so many things that you can get out of these courses they offer at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. So check it out today and come keep your brain working.
For more information on the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, call 256-824-6183. That's 256-824-6183. Or email olli.info@uah.edu. The Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Come keep your brain working.
Now, the second part of the show, what I'd like to talk about, and today is the day I teach at UAH at the Osher Institute. I've been privileged to be an instructor there for going on 12 years now, and you've probably heard our public service announcement we do for them, because I think that's just a great institution. There's so many classes that you can attend there. Boy, you can learn everything from different languages to arts to history to travel. Political things. I teach a class called Changing Face of Retirement in the 21st Century that I modify every year, and they bless me by asking me to come back every year to teach that. And today we covered estate planning, and we got a lot of questions on that. And I thought what would make the great second half of this show is to touch on the items in a good estate plan. In the first part of the show, I talked about the retirement planning checklist. Well, that'll get you into retirement, help you get through retirement. But what happens at the end of retirement? Well, it's important that you have a transition plan. And I think there's some misunderstandings about what an estate plan actually is. It's not just for wealthy people. It's basically about accumulating, preserving, and ultimately distributing your assets. It's having a plan. Just like I said, you got to have a plan to go into retirement. I hate to say this, you really need a good one to get out of it. Not that you want to, but it's part of the process of life. So it's making sure that all that you've worked for go to whom and to whatever entity you want it to go to. If you don't do that, well, you incur a lot of legal costs. You incur a lot of stress on the family. There could be tax issues by not doing things correctly. One of the things an estate plan could do is help prevent Medicaid spend down. Now, we've seen change in, a lot of people, when you say estate plan, they automatically think of the federal estate tax. Most people are not affected by that anymore. They've raised that to such a limit that the federal estate tax, at least for the time being, for the next few years, will probably not affect most people in the listening audience. If it affects you, great, you have done really well. But most families aren't going to be affected by that. What estate planning means for them is making sure that when your loved ones are dealing with your departure, that you're not leaving them with a lot of tough decisions. And there's a lot of tensions that can happen in a family if you don't have an estate plan. And it really does cause a lot of emotional trauma. So you're going to help your family through that. I use a tool in the interim planning of that called the beneficiary directory, which a lot of my clients have found very helpful. And as a matter of fact, would be happy to give out for the first 3 callers a workbook, a beneficiary directory workbook. If you'll call 844-343-6048, that's 844-343-6048. For the first 3 callers, just ask for the beneficiary directory workbook, and we'll get the information, get that mailed out to you. That's a good way to start. Now, let's take a look at what makes a good estate plan. Well, having a clear plan for the disposition of your assets, spells out who gets it and what they get. There are ways that it could be that you got a will. You're trying to figure out whether you need a trust, and we'll cover that as we go along. But it's what that will says, where it goes. Now, there are other things you can do too. And for those who are sitting here thinking, wow, I don't have a big estate. I've got several IRAs and, I got a brokerage account, a couple bank accounts, and my house, but that's pretty much it. Why do I need to go through an elaborate estate plan? Well, what you want to do is have a will to cover those personal possessions, and then it might be using payable on death or transfer on death forms to get those transferred without going through probate, because probate is that process you've got to go through to prove your will valid. In fact, that's what probate means. It's to dispose of the assets. In the state of Alabama, there's a 6-month minimum probate period, so you got to keep that in mind. And so what I always coach people is try to have as little financial aspects go through that will as possible. And that's a discussion to have at another time of whether you need a will, whether you need a trust. Today, we're just talking about things in general, having an estate plan. So you die, it goes to probate court, and there's 6-month waiting period so that it allows creditors to make claim to your estate. And what that means is, for example, if you've had a new roof put on and you haven't finished paying the roofer yet, you die. Well, it gives him 6 months to make a claim to your estate so he can get paid for the work he did. Any other creditors as well. So just remember that. That's why that probate period. Now, when you use a beneficiary-driven plan, whether it's through your 401ks, your IRAs, your brokerage accounts, where you're actually naming a primary and successor beneficiary, you can bypass that probate process. Another mistake when it comes to beneficiary forms is not having a contingent beneficiary, not having a secondary beneficiary. And that's critical, because if you're naming your wife and you both die in a common accident, it's going to have to be probated. There's going to be some issues there. It may cost the kids some money or grandkids some money. So again, one of the things I do with my clients is do a regular beneficiary review so that these little issues don't happen. And that's something you need to be doing with a financial advisor if you have one. If they're not asking you to do a beneficiary review periodically, and I'm not talking about every 10 years, I'm talking about, maybe every year or two as part of your annual review process, then you need to ask about that. Why are we not doing that? This is important. What a financial advisor does is he brings value to the equation. Bottom line is, if all a financial's doing is showing you investments and making a commission, then you need to look at that arrangement, because a true financial advisor needs to really be helping you, coach you through these things we're talking about. Not just the right investments, but your beneficiaries and how your estate is set up. Now, I'm not talking about a financial advisor practicing law without a license. You need to do that through an attorney. But there are questions a financial advisor should be asking and providing you information so you can go do that in the most efficient manner possible. So as we look at things, of course, you got the will, you got your beneficiary-driven designations, and a lot of people say, well, do I need a trust? Okay, well, you might. The people that would most benefit from a trust are, for example, somebody who owns property in multiple states. Because if you do, you're going to have to probate that will in each state. Now, it's not that you need a will in each state. It's just if you are a citizen of Alabama, you're going to have to probate your will in each one of those states, which adds cost to it. Whereas a trust avoids that. And where that would come into play, let's say you own a mountain cabin in Gatlinburg and you've got a condo down at Destin and your home here in Alabama and maybe some inherited farm property in Mississippi, well, you're going to have to probate that will 4 times because of that issue. Whereas a trust, you wouldn't have to probate it all. Wills are public knowledge. Trusts are private. That's a main reason a lot of people use trust. If you have business entities, if you have substantial assets, those are some of the reasons to do trust. If you've got issues where maybe you're not real crazy about the guy your daughter married, well, you can set up provisions in the trust to take care of those issues to where she gets that money in certain conditions and he doesn't. So there's a lot of things that come into play with a trust. And when I'm speaking of trust, I'm just talking about a living trust, and that's revocable. And again, I'm not trying to practice law. I'm not a lawyer, but these are the questions you need to be asking a financial advisor to direct you to the attorney he works with. In fact, today when I was doing my class at UAH, I had the attorney I work with a lot, who does a lot of stuff for my clients, he always comes in and helps me with that class because it's good to throw things off each other to make sure all the bases are covered. Now, you can also have irrevocable trusts, and that's where you've got those special family issues that once that's done, it's done. There's no changing. When you have a living trust that's revocable and you're the trustee, well, you can make changes throughout your life until you die. Now, once you die, that ends that. But it's important to know the difference between a revocable and irrevocable. Once that irrevocable is in place, it's it. You have special needs trust, and maybe you have a child that's got a mental or physical disability or limitation, and they're getting government benefits. Utilizing a special needs trust can be critical to allow you to help provide support in the right ways that don't jeopardize their government benefits. So keep that in mind. Another key area would be having a durable power of attorney. And that allows your spouse to make decisions for you. Most people don't realize that you could come to a situation where if you're not there to say it's okay for your spouse to do things, they may not be able to do things. I got a rude awakening when my daughter she was having neck problems, and I sent her to a chiropractor friend of mine, and he's also a client. And she was very pleased with the services. She ended up later having to need to get an operation because it was a deeper problem than he could fix, and that helped her. But we went to lunch soon after that, and I said, well, how'd things go with Bonnie? And he said, well, Brad, I really can't disclose that. She's patient. And I says, well, she's my daughter. And he says, well, I know that, but HIPAA precludes me from discussing that with you because of her age. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was kind of a rude awakening a few years ago when I found out doctor can't even tell me about my daughter's issues, who's still a minor because of HIPAA. Well, same thing applies to spouses. So having a durable power of attorney that is in place that would allow them to be able to talk your spouse or to you about your spouse is critical. I mean, it's critical. And as a matter of fact, would be happy to give out for the first 3 callers a workbook, a beneficiary directory workbook. If you'll call 844-343-6048, that's 844-343-6048. For the first 3 callers, just ask for the beneficiary directory workbook, and we'll get the information, get that mailed out to you. That's a good way to start.
A good retirement plan is about income. How much money you've saved is not as important as how much income you're going to have. A sound income plan should take into account the timing of your Social Security distribution. If you're taking a pension, did you take a survivor option and why? When you're taking your required minimum distributions from your IRAs at 70.5, are they coming from growth? Are they coming from dividends and interest? because that could be a disaster if it's coming from growth. Timing when to start each stream of income is just as important as the tax implications of each stream of income. If you're looking for an advisor to be more of a partner for you and your spouse in retirement, call Brad Williams Financial Services at 844-343-6048. Call today and schedule a free 1-hour, no-obligation consultation to discuss your goals and aspirations and see if we're a good fit. That's 844-343-6048.
I thought what would make the great second half of this show is to touch on the items in a good estate plan. When we went to break, we were talking about durable power of attorney. And the next thing probably that's really important is an advanced healthcare directive. And that is telling them when to pull the plug. What are your wishes in the event you're in a coma or a like situation? And do you want life support? Do you not? You got to put that in writing in advance. We all remember the Terry Schiavo incident that caused quite a bit of consternation among her family and the nation for that matter. So we look at all this and we put it all together. You got your will, you've got a potential trust, whether it's revocable, irrevocable. You got your durable power of attorney. You got your advanced healthcare directive. All these are components of a good estate plan. And a good estate plan needs to be revisited on a regular basis, not necessarily to change it. But if you haven't written a will in 20 years, you might want to look at that again. If you have written a durable power of attorney 10 years ago, you might want to look at that again because some laws have changed that may make that bank not accept it. So you need to check into that. And again, these are things that working with a financial advisor who takes the holistic approach, that's why it's important, because it's the advisor saying, do you have this? Do you have that? And when did you get that? And when did you last update it? All these are critical pieces of information that are necessary to make sure you have a good estate plan. So I will conclude my estate plan segment on that. And again, if you are interested in getting one of our copies of the beneficiary directory, which is a great tool for helping you start to figure out how to do the plan. It actually walks you through finding things and cataloging things. And that way, when somebody comes in behind you, there's a catalog, there's a directory, and it's not really that difficult. It just takes a little time to do. But if you want to get one of those copies of the workbook, the beneficiary directory workbook, I'm going to make those available to the first 3 callers at 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Now, Huntsville and North Alabama, I hope you have a great next week. And again, this was our first hour-long show. We'll try to keep the topics current and beneficial, and we appreciate you listening. Again, if you have a question that you would like me to address on air, I'll keep you confidential. Or you've got a show topic you'd like me to cover that maybe's affected your life, just email me at brad@askbradwilliams.com. And just like it is, ASK, brad@askbradwilliams.com. And I'll be happy to address that as soon as possible. Again, thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
That's all the time we have for today. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisory firm. Brad Williams Financial Services and Sound Income Strategies, LLC are not associated entities.